The Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological condition that occurs when a victim of kidnapping develops positive feelings towards their captor. It's a psychological phenomenon where hostages, after being kidnapped for a period, transition from feelings of fear and hatred to affection and sympathy towards their captor. The Stockholm Syndrome has occurred for many decades, even centuries. But it wasn't until 1973 that this condition was formally named by psychiatrist Niels Bejerot. Hello again, it's me, and today we're going to learn about a bank robbery and hostage situation in Sweden in 1973, in the city of Stockholm. On August 23, 1973, an escaped convict named Jan Erik Olsson stormed a bank, terrorizing the bank employees. The robber held 4 hostages, 3 women and 1 man, for approximately 131 hours. The 3 women were Birgitta Lundblad, Elizabeth Oldgren, and Kristen Enmark, and the man was Sven Säfström. The hostages were all strapped with explosives and confined in a vault. Police sharpshooters immediately surrounded the bank, and Erik set conditions for the release of the hostages: 3 million krona in ransom money and the release of his accomplice, Clark Olofsson. Clark was a notorious criminal in Sweden at the time, known for bank robberies and ingenious escape plans. The next morning, Clark was brought to the bank to join forces with his old friend. Erik then demanded a car to flee the scene but was denied. The 2 criminals and 4 hostages entered the vault together, and the police made a daring decision to lock the hostages inside with the criminals. They gambled that Erik and Clark wouldn't harm the hostages, as they would be their last bargaining chips for survival. When directly connected to the current Prime Minister Olof Palme, hostage Kristen Enmark unexpectedly spoke up. "Palme, you disappoint me. I'm not afraid of these 2 men, they're protecting us." She pleaded for the police to release the 2 captors and even wanted to go with them. This action surprised Sweden, not knowing why the young girl behaved like that. A few days later, the police came up with a plan to rescue the hostages. Using gas anesthesia, they would drill a hole into the money vault and pump gas inside. Erik Olsson also devised a countermeasure. He used a bomb to detonate the working drill. This thwarted the police's plan, but only delayed them. The police brought in heavy-duty drills and continued drilling holes, hoping to save the hostages. Erik Olsson wasn't finished. He made a threatening move that surprised everyone. When he entered the vault with the hostages, he carried a black bag containing pre-tied ropes, looping them around the hostages' necks, threatening the police that if they attempted to pump gas inside, the hostages would be the first to die, and their deaths would be on the police. This threat truly baffled the police. They didn't know whether to proceed with the plan, or if the threat was real. Through one of the drilled holes into the vault, the police inserted a camera to confirm the situation inside. 4 hostages sitting on the floor with ropes around their necks. This was when the police knew Erik wasn't lying. With few options left, the police decided to proceed with the gas anesthesia plan, using 3 holes in the ceiling to release gas and 2 holes on the sides for sharpshooters if needed. About 30 minutes later, the police stormed in and successfully arrested the 2 criminals, Erik Olsson and Clark Olofsson. Luckily, there were no casualties, unlike other kidnapping and extortion cases. The relationship between the 2 criminals and the 4 hostages in this case was unique. When the police opened the vault, they witnessed a surprising and strange scene. The hostages hugging the 2 captors as if bidding farewell. They even sent warm words to them saying, "We'll be okay, take care." They reminded the officers not to hurt Clark and Erik. As they were escorted out by the police, they stood around the criminals trying to shield and protect them. They later refused to testify against Erik and Olsson in court, even calling for financial assistance to help the criminals in their legal battle. Although this psychological phenomenon has been around for a long time, it was the event at credit banking that gave it its name, the Stockholm Syndrome. The behavior and reactions of the victims held by the criminals for 131 hours truly surprised and sparked much debate in Sweden. Instead of being grateful to the officers who tirelessly watched over them, ensuring their safety, and resenting the 2 robbers, they had completely contradictory thoughts. Kristen Enmark recounted, "I wasn't afraid of those 2 men, but I was afraid of the police." Elizabeth Oldgren said, "During the time I was held captive, Erik was very kind to allow me to move around the floor." Sven Säfström expressed, "I'm very grateful to Erik Olsson. I think Erik treated us very well." He even compared Erik to God. As for the criminal Erik Olsson, at the start of the kidnapping, he thought he could easily harm the hostages if necessary. However, over time, everything changed. They did everything I asked. None of them wanted to attack or oppose me, Erik Olsen said. He mentioned that during the days they were all confined inside the vault, both sides had nothing else to do but get to know each other. Kristen Enmark recalled that after being rescued from the bank and questioned by the police, she felt that nobody really cared about what they wanted or how they felt. They just wanted to learn more about the Stockholm Syndrome. Kristen then quit her job at the bank, studied social psychology, and became a psychotherapist for drug addicts. She published a book titled I Was Afflicted with Stockholm Syndrome, admitting she had special feelings for Clark Olofsson and was still trying to overcome them. Many months after the incident, she continued to visit him in prison, and the two exchanged letters regularly. Despite Clark married a Belgian woman while still behind bars, Erik Olsen was pardoned after 8 years and moved with his family to Thailand. The kidnapping subsequently inspired numerous novels and films. In 1989, a large-scale FBI survey on the Stockholm Syndrome, involving about 600 police agencies, found no cases related to the syndrome. In short, while this syndrome is extremely rare, it has been recorded in several historical cases. Patty Hearst, the granddaughter of the renowned newspaper publisher William Randolph Hearst, was kidnapped in 1974 by the Symbionese Liberation Army. During her captivity, she renounced her family and adopted a new name. She even joined the SLA to rob banks. Later, after Patty was captured, she used the Stockholm Syndrome as a defense in her trial. However, her defense was not successful, and she was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Natasha Kampusch in 1998 at the age of 10 was kidnapped and held underground in a soundproofed room. The kidnapper, Wolfgang Priklopil, kept her captive for over 8 years. During that time, he displayed moments of kindness, but he also frequently beat her and threatened to kill her. Natasha managed to escape, and Priklopil committed suicide shortly afterward. News reports at the time stated that Natasha cried and expressed pity for her captor of over 8 years. Mary McElroy, in 1933 at the age of 25, was abducted by 4 men. They chained her to a wall in an abandoned farmhouse, threatening and demanding ransom from her family. When released, she refused to disclose the identities of her captors. During the trial, Mary even publicly expressed sympathy for them. Shortly thereafter, the 4 criminals were apprehended. The main perpetrator pictured here was Walter McGee. Mary recounted that before her release, Walter McGee had suggested she undress so he could check for anything suspicious that might lead to their capture. When she refused, he did not force her. Walter even gave her a bouquet of flowers when they parted ways. Walter McGee was sentenced to death on May 30th, 1935, but due to Mary's plea for clemency, with her father's approval, the sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Mary McElroy took her own life in January 1940, a year after her father's death. She left behind a note stating, "The 4 men who abducted me are the only people on earth who value me. You guys have already received your suspended sentence, so please, give them another chance. Mary." There are many other events around us that may not be Stockholm Syndrome but are similar in nature. Toxic romantic relationships or simply harmful social relationships, once deeply entrenched, can make it difficult for us to remain sober and discern right from wrong. While outsiders may have more objective and accurate perspectives, sometimes we may find ourselves understanding, sympathizing with, or even empathizing with villains, criminals, or even murderers. However, the most important thing is that we must be able to distinguish between right and wrong, good and bad, beneficial and harmful. It's easier said than done because nothing in this world is as clear-cut as black and white. This video comes to an end here. Thank you for watching. What do you think about this strange syndrome? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And this is Creep Factor. Thank you for taking the time to watch the entire video. And if you like this video, please click like, share and subscribe to the channel for more interesting contents.